DJ PK, we're joined once again by former Ute quarterback Frank Dolce. Frank, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Frank, you have a keen mind for business. I watched that BYU-Utah game and thought, as a business model, how do you not play this game? Everybody's loving it. It's a great game. The place is packed. It's rocking. Players on both teams have never been a part of it are like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
It's got to be a thing.
You mean why did they not play that game?
Well, they didn't, and they may not play it in the future. I mean, we'll see. They're in the Big 12 together for now. Who knows what realignment's going to bring along, but that was just awesome. I can't believe we missed it. And I can't believe when we don't play it, that some bowl game out there doesn't put them together the way the Las Vegas Bowl did, because that was awesome too. These two teams, fantastic.
I feel this way. If they're not going to play during the regular season, which they should, then there should be a designated bowl game that puts those two teams together. Like it's just such a great rivalry that it's really hard to dismiss it anytime. Like it should always be on the schedule. So I don't disagree with you. The atmosphere, everything leading up to the game, the excitement with the game, there's just nothing like it.
Yeah, but wouldn't you rather play Florida? You got to do it every year. We all like cake, but are you going to eat cake every day?
I know. That's what my uncle used to say.
Wouldn't you like apple strudel now and again?
That's what he used to say. What's your favorite food? Pizza? Do you want to eat pizza every day? But then I was like, well, yeah. I would eat pizza every day.
Every day?
Every day. Here's the thing about pizza. You can make pizza like you can make a breakfast pizza, so it has, eggs and bacon and everything else. And you could make like a lunch pizza, like a pepperoni. You could make a dinner pizza, like a margarita. You can make a dessert pizza. You can have pizza for every meal, and it can always be different.
I had no idea we were going to talk about this with you. That's amazing.
But then you never eat apple strudel for dessert.
Put apple strudel on top of a pizza. It's an apple strudel pizza.
Okay. I'm going to have apple strudel tonight.
Do you have anything you would like to share about everybody would like to hear your opinion on the end of the game, the penalty, the drive? Go ahead. The last 2 minutes, and go.
Okay, these two things are true, okay? And they're both true, okay? One, that's a bad call. I'm not saying it's an egregious call. I'm saying that's a bad call. You can make an argument to make that call. You can make a good argument not to make that call. I think the right argument, obviously, is to not make that call. Like, that's a bad call. Okay, that's number one. Number two, truth, is Utah scored 0 points in the second half. 0. And you could say that a field goal, 3 points, wins the game. Yeah. And Utah could not figure out how to manufacture 3 points in the second half. That's also true. So was it the call that lost Utah the game? Well, no, but yes. Was it the fact that Utah couldn't score in the second half? Did that lose Utah the game? Yes. Like, there's too many factors to place it all on the call because of the situation in the game and what was happening and how Utah was dominating on the defensive side in that particular series. It's a critical and crucial call. But there's a lot of other factors in that game that would have led to a Utah victory that Utah had more control over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you can say that about every game. I don't know that a singular call ever changes a game, ever decides a game. Maybe change a game, maybe, but decide a game? Nah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, was it a face mask?
No.
On replay, that's not a face mask.
I know.
But live in action, the way that the arm is across the head, the way the head twists, that looked like a face mask. But was it a face mask? No. What did that face mask lead to? I mean, so you could go through lots of different things. And I think, yes, I think the call was bad. And I was I was also disappointed that Utah couldn't manufacture some points in the second half. And I think, BYU played well on the defensive side, but I don't think Utah or BYU's good play on the defensive side was the sole limiting factor for Utah not scoring on the offensive side in the second half.
True. I agree with that. But at the same time, I know Mark Harlan's just taking a ton of heat. I get it. He shouldn't have done it. I'll be the first to say it. But at the same time, man, they're riding a 5-game losing streak. The season had incredibly high, if not the highest expectations of all time. And it has just bottomed out. And all that stuff caught up to him in the moment. So he did what he did. I don't think he's a bum, and I'm not going to cast him out because of that. I mean, whether you like him or not, I'm going to judge him on his entirety rather than a singular human emotion in the moment.
Yeah. Well, could I give you a different perspective on that?
Sure. Yeah.
From a former player and a Utah guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say that I appreciate Mark Harlan going up there and laying it on the line for Utah, like sticking up for the Utes and feeling the emotion of the game and kind of having Utah's back. Now, objectively, was that the quote unquote right thing to do?
No.
Well, we've been told that you can't criticize the refs and for an administrator to go up there and send that message. What is that a great message? I don't know. But from a player's perspective, I would say that I appreciate his willingness to go up there and stick up for Utah.
That is duly noted and I think accepted from a lot of people, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people who saw it. And there's a reason the Big 12 has now fined 4 athletic directors over the last 10 years. 3 other ADs felt the need to do the same thing, and you're the leader, and sometimes you got to, take the heat and do that. Man, mentioning conference realignment and being a member of the league, somehow I feel like that was part of the extra. The other 3 ADs all got fined $25,000. He got fined 40, and I know there's stuff about him being on the field, and that's probably part of it. But man, when the commissioner heard that, I don't know how a commissioner didn't take that personally. That was like, wow, that was a whole nother level.
Well,
and that's why you laughed.
But...
And that's why you laughed, because it is another level.
Well, you did. It is another level, but the commissioner saw the call as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the commissioner saw the call, so. I mean, I would say that a reasonable commissioner would say, like, yeah, he might have a point there. At that position in the game, okay, well, we're gonna do the right thing, and we're gonna fine him. That's the right thing, and we're gonna make a statement. That's the right thing, and we're also gonna be human beings and understand the situation in the game. And that's kind of a funny call in that situation. So I appreciate the way the commissioner managed it. And by the way, Mark Harlan going up and doing that took all of the pressure off of Coach Whittingham, who was hot after the game. Now Coach Whittingham isn't in a position where he has to feel like he has to make a statement like that. It's already been taken care of. Now he can talk about everything else and not get involved in that mess.
Right, because if Kyle does that and smacks a chair,
we're talking about
he may get suspended.
Game suspensions.
Right.
You got it. That's exactly right.
What are you going to suspend the athletic director from? He can't go to the game? Whoop-de-doo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Harlan took the heat for Kyle, and that did take the pressure off because Kyle didn't, and I don't think Kyle knew exactly what happened, but once he was told, well, you know what Harlan's going to say. You may not know his exact words, but you know the message that he was delivering, and that was it. Yep. And as far as these other coaches who are ADs who were fined, they had never gone in with national playoff aspirations. They weren't playing a heated rival because there's no rival in the Big 12 that exists to the level of BYU, Utah, and all those things in there. So it was fine. I just don't think it was that big of a deal, and he was wrong. He knows it and all that. But even in his apology, he didn't apologize. He apologized for doing it the way he did it at the time that he did it, but he didn't apologize for the deal.
He's not going to apologize for hating the call. He still hates the call.
Well, but it's not hating the call. That's thinking the call's wrong. No. You can hate the call all you want. Right. That doesn't mean it's wrong. He doesn't. I disagree. I thought the call was fine, but so what?
Brant Kuithe gets hurt in this game, and there's so many things that happened. I realize that's a little bit of a footnote, but it's a huge factor for a team. I mean, he's the second leading receiver. He's making a bunch of big plays. He's scoring touchdowns in that game. We heard how good all of the tight ends at the U were, but all combined, the tight ends not named Brant Kuithe have 10 catches all year. That's not much. Who's going to step up now, and to what degree, what portion of Brant Kuithe can they replace, and how much is this offense hobbled going forward without him?
Well, it's hobbled only if Utah decides that they don't have a tight end group. Like that has been an egregiously underutilized position group. Carson Ryan had a big catch in that game to convert for a first down. That's a guy who should be on the field, in my opinion, way more regularly. And I hesitate slightly saying that because we're not on the practice field and we don't know what happens in the preparation room and watching film and studying and all of those other factors. But just based on his body of work, which includes his time at UCLA, I scratch my head trying to figure out why he is not more of a weapon, and as well as other guys in that room. I'm just singling him out because I think he's made some plays that have been outstanding. So the loss of Kuithe is he's like a Swiss Army knife. He brings so many things to the table. He has great football IQ, great athleticism. It's hard to replace a guy like that, except when you have a room full of guys like Utah does at the tight end position. So if Utah takes a hit in productivity there because of the loss of Brant Kuithe, I think that's because Utah isn't managing that position group correctly.
What'd you see from Rose?
I saw some good things. That's a very difficult position to be in, the rival game. You could see he was pretty excited about it. I'll never temper somebody's excitement, but it's hard to ride a roller coaster of emotion like that in a game like that, because emotion, it eventually runs out. You get tired, you get fatigued. Emotion runs out a little bit, and then you can't ride that. So I thought that his excitement was infectious for the team in situations, and the team rallied around him, and it's a very difficult situation to be in. And I would say, if I'm being super critical, I would say that he didn't have that same emotional kick in the second half. He looked like a little more pedestrian than in the second half, and that could be due to lots of things. I actually thought that he got dinged up in that game, and if you watch the way he was running around toward the sideline after plays, getting back to the huddle in the second half, it looked like he was dinged up a little bit, like a lower extremity kind of thing. So I think that may have been a factor. And then, like I said, the excitement of the game it wears off. Like the emotion of the game wears off, and now you just have to perform. And was it due to play calling or lack of emotion or whatever it was? Utah just didn't feel quite the same offensively in the second half. I thought first half they looked not dominant, but controlling the game. Second half was like, are we just trying to figure out how to not to lose this thing? Because it didn't look like we had our foot on the gas pedal at all.
Do you expecting a sixth straight loss at Colorado, or are they going to break through on the road?
Yeah, this is a team that, this is a team that has enough talent that they could win any given weekend. So, but it's not. It's also not a team that can survive dumb mistakes. Like, okay, Utah loses the turnover battle again. down 2 against BYU. Now, that's a factor we just haven't talked about because of all the other things. You can't lose the turnover battle. So this is a team that if Utah plays Colorado straight up, I would say that's a tough game for Utah to win because of lots of factors, not the least of which is culturally Colorado's playing because they're gonna win every game, and Utah's trying to figure out how to win a game. That's difficult. And Utah has to have in a game like that. I think Utah has to have a little bit of help. So they have to get a couple turnovers. They have to win the turnover battle. They have to they have to get a few sacks. They have to have a big special teams play in order to win that game. So I think against Colorado and maybe just if I look across the rest of the schedule, maybe just against Colorado, need a little bit of help to win that game and then see how that propels them through the rest of the season. I think it's a winnable game for sure. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a winnable game, but things would have to go the right way for Utah.
Frank, we got to run. You go get yourself a strudel pizza and tell us all about it next week.
Pizza, it's like it's the Swiss Army knife. It's like the Brandt Keithy of foods. You could do anything to a pizza, any meal of the day.
There it is. Thanks, Frank. We appreciate it. Frank Dolce.
All right, you guys. Great to talk to you.
Former Ute quarterback joined us here on the air. Coming up next, Shehan Jeyarajah will join us, national college football writer for CBS Sports, who was surprised BYU was so low. 9th last week, expected BYU to be higher. What are the expectations now after a week that sees a couple of top 10 teams go down? We'll find out next. Stay with us.
Another edition of the Holy War is in the books. And your home for all the best coverage of another chapter of BYU versus Utah was right here on the KSL Sports Zone.
Retzlaff goes down! Reed got to him! There is a flag in the secondary. I think this one's going against Utah.
Defense number 5. 10-yard penalty.
Whoa!
Automatic first down.
Tough way to lose a ball game. Unfortunate way to lose a ball game. Proud of our guys. Proud of our players. They battled. They should hold their heads high. It's not on them. They played hard. They did everything they could from start to finish, and I'm proud of them. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it turned out the way it did.
As we enter the stretch run of the 24th season, the best coverage of the Utes and Cougars is on air, online, and on the KSL Sports app. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Utah Jazz Ticket Tuesday. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. Wins a pair of tickets. See the Jazz take on the Spurs November 26th at the Delta Center. 801-575-ZONE. Call right now. Caller 12, 801-575-ZONE. We're joined once again by Shehan Jeyarajah, national college football writer for CBS Sports. Shehan, welcome to the show again.
Thanks so much for having me. Am I eligible to win those Jazz tickets? Because I definitely would be down to come down.
Yeah, absolutely. Just hang up and call and see if you can get through. Good luck with that. It's probably too late already, actually, but you got to dial quickly.
I love it.
You caught our attention with something you wrote last week, and it'll be updated now as the new rankings come out. But you were surprised BYU was 9th. I think there are a lot of people, and I probably go on the list. Brand name recognition matters, and resumes sometimes get lost in that. Is that the simplest way to describe why the Cougars were 9th instead of 7th or 8th, and why they were behind a couple of the teams they were behind?
Well, I think I try to draw a distinction between just the logo on the helmet per se, but I think that something else that matters is I think that people bring a lot of preconceived notions into the rankings. And we see this in the AP, for example. I mean, we see teams that just started high, and so I think that they managed to stay high because of that. And I think that BYU is just one of those teams that you look at, and one, I mean, obviously last year they missed a bowl game, so people didn't have high expectations of them coming into the year. And two, they just haven't necessarily, been on this stage in a little while. And so I think that there's this sort of preconceived notion of let's wait for BYU to prove it against somebody, for them to be on the stage. But the sort of issue, right, is you don't get a chance to do that if you're not allowed into the field. So I think that that's really what's working against them, is that the committee members are sitting here like, well, look, they beat SMU, who's a good team. They beat Kansas State, who's a good team. We consider both those teams top 20. But, how will they stack up with a hypothetical matchup against Oregon or Ohio State? And the reality is we won't know unless they get the chance to be there.
The thing that caught my eye and ear last week in watching the show was, and I forget who said it, I think McElroy maybe, talking about if they go undefeated in the regular season, so they're 12-0, and then lose the conference title game, that he thinks that they might be out. At 12-1, BYU being left out seems preposterous to me. What do you think?
Yeah, with the positioning of where they were after this first ranking, I think it's a real risk. For them to be number 9 as a zero-loss team, and by the way, there are multiple teams ahead of them who have 0 ranked victories and have losses. I look at a team like Penn State. What exactly is Penn State's case? They've also played close games. They've also lost a game. They don't have any quality wins compared to BYU's too. I think that when you look at the way that they're being treated, I do think that they would be at risk of getting left out. Now, what happens today in the rankings on Tuesday night, I think, will be hugely consequential for a couple of reasons. One, we'll kind of see just how high BYU is able to move, and two, we'll also see who jumps up from behind. I'm looking at a team like number 11 Alabama, who just picked up a win over top 15 LSU. Is that a team that's at risk? With 2 losses, by the way, of jumping BYU. That's the sort of thing I'm going to be watching for. And the other one, too, is also where is Miami health after they lost their first game of the season? That they fall behind BYU, but we just don't really know it yet.
You mentioned Penn State, and are they too high? And I think that's a great question. What about Texas? Because they've played some strong brand names, but those teams aren't having good years. Michigan, okay, that was a big game in September, but Michigan's 5-5 now. Oklahoma, well, obviously they've got problems. Florida's got problems. So they've beaten these big-name schools, but they're not good teams this year. And the one big game they had is Georgia. Now, Texas, that's their only loss, and Georgia's got 2. But Georgia beat them head-to-head, and Georgia's played a way tougher schedule. So should Texas be behind Georgia, and should Georgia be behind Alabama? And how much do you think those dominoes are going to get lined up? How much does head-to-head matter?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because you're looking at Georgia. That's a team with 2 losses at this point. Alabama, a team with 2 losses at this point. And Texas only has 1. I tend to, whenever we see disparities between losses, we tend to see that that's generally valued. Texas is an interesting team for me because, like you said, they kind of got destroyed when they played against Georgia. But I think that at least their other data points have been positive. That's the thing that kind of gets me about Penn State. It's the thing that got me about Miami the week before, is that I don't think that they have very many positive data points to kind of point to. Texas doesn't in terms of schedule, but they do in terms of down-to-down excellence and in terms of, being dominant against medium competition, I guess you could say. So I don't think necessarily that they're going to default to head-to-head. Georgia's also another team that I think it's going to be really fascinating where they end up, along with Ole Miss as well. Because now, again, you're looking at Ole Miss as a 2-loss team, just like Georgia. They've got a head-to-head over them. But Ole Miss also has a loss to Kentucky, who might be the worst team in the SEC this year. So I don't know that there's necessarily a conventional logic of how those seeds will ultimately work themselves out. If I had to guess, I think that we're probably looking at a situation where Texas is still the top among those teams.
To me, it looks like the only way the Big 12 is going to get 2 is the winner goes, obviously. And if I'm Brett Yormark, I'm hoping that the winner isn't Colorado. Because if I want 2, my best chance is for an at-large bid for Colorado just because of all the hype. How about you?
Yeah, I think that that's tough because I think that when you look at Colorado, they're already a 2-loss team at this point. They have a really dominant loss, 28-10 against Nebraska, and I just don't know that they're going to be able to build up their resume enough to maybe give themselves a chance. To close the year, it's Utah at Kansas, Oklahoma State. Right now, they're going to move into the top 20 most likely of the CFP rankings when it comes out tonight. But again, they also played they have one ranked team on their schedule to this point. It's against Kansas State, and they lost that game. So I don't know. I understand the thought process behind, that potentially this is a big brand that people will watch. But I really don't think that the committee cares about that kind of stuff as much as people think. I think that it really is more that they have preconceived notions about how a team will perform.
Indiana is 10-0, but they've got to play Ohio State. That was a close game with Michigan. If they're 11-1 with a loss to Ohio State and don't go to the Big Ten title game, are they still in? Or is their resume going to leave them wanting? How do you think the committee's going to handle them?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are in a tough position from a resume perspective. Again, this is another one where they end up is going to be really important, I think, in the rankings tonight. I still feel fairly confident that Indiana would be in at 11-1. I think that teams from the Big Ten and SEC can get left out with 10 wins, but I don't know about 11. So I do think that, especially when you combine that with the relative level of dominance that Indiana's had to this point, they're a team that's going to rate pretty well in some of these advanced metrics in terms of controlling games and just offensive and defensive ratings, stuff like that, and that's going to help them out. Now, again, we'll see just how much. And I will say, right, they've played some good teams. They haven't played any great teams to this point. That's going to change in 2 weeks against Ohio State. But, Washington's not a bad team. Nebraska is not a bad team. I do think that they should feel in decent position. But I will say the other thing, too, is if they get blasted by Ohio State, if they lose, if they do what Indiana did to Nebraska, and it's like a 56-7, which I don't expect, but if that happens, I think that makes the case a little bit tougher. I think that you have to prove that you at least belong on the field when you play Ohio State, but I do think that at 11-1 they should be okay.
How much does margin of victory matter to you?
Well, I think that it's less margin of victory to me, which it does matter, but I think that it's more again, it's kind of become a running joke with the committee, but game control. How much are you able to manage a game? So I look at, for example, just on BYU's schedule, BYU played Baylor. The final score was 34-28. They were up 20 points the entire game, and it was just a late flurry. I think that you have to take that into account. Now at the same time, I think that you end up in a situation where you incentivize teams to kind of try to run up the score. I don't think that that's necessarily useful. So I more want to know about how the game flow went, how competitive the game was, what % of the game was really in doubt versus something like just the final number on the page.
If BYU does get beat, would a team like Colorado jump Boise State, or is it possible that a group of 5 team, well, the Broncos are the only one, but that the Broncos as a group of 5 team could get a first-round bye?
It's absolutely possible, and even if BYU were to go 12-1, I think that that's frankly a risk. With the positioning of these two teams, of course, as with Boise State only at number 12 and BYU only at number 9. So I do think that there's very much a chance that Boise State could put themselves in position to jump. The other thing, too, by the way, is that we'll have to see where Miami ends up, because Miami in the AP poll dropped to number 12, putting them at risk of falling behind Boise State. So I think that whether it's the Big 12 or the ACC, there's a very legitimate chance that Boise State could fight its way up if it's able to finish 12-1 with its only loss, by the way, coming on the road against the number 1 team in the country.
We've had you on our show a number of times, and we appreciate it. I heard you last week on the College Sports Network on the Sirius Radio, and they seem to be enjoying you there. I'm wondering, as your profile continues to rise to just very impressive levels, has that reduced your anxiety of when you go on a new show that they don't just totally butcher your name?
No is the short answer. I try to send over my pronunciation guide. I have it in my social media bio, but you just never know. I remember actually the first time I went on Feinbaum, he pronounced it Shehan, which is something I've never heard in my life. But thankfully people are starting to get a little bit better. But no, there's still always that little bit of anxiety.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, the first time I was on college radio, the very first time And I went back to the dorms to listen to the little story I'd done, and they were going to introduce it, right? And you would think with a name like David James, that couldn't get messed up. But it was a student who was anchoring for the first time who was super nervous who said, and with the report, here's David Jones. So, doesn't matter how straightforward your name is or how easy you think it is, it's really hard for someone who's really nervous. So, there you go.
I love it. I love it.
Well, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you again down the road here as things continue to develop. We appreciate the time. Thanks, Shehan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Shehan Jeyarajah joining us, national college football writer for CBS Sports. Yak, I assume that those Utah Jazz tickets are gone. It's too late for Shehan to call in now. Are we going to have more tickets?
Yeah, we got more.
Oh, what time?
9:30.
Excellent. 9:30.
Every half hour throughout the day. Sorry,
Be
every
ready.
hour.
Every hour on the half
Excuse
hour.
me.
30 past every hour. We'll have tickets all day long, all the shows. Another chance to win Jazz Spurs tickets coming up at 9:30 right here on The Zone. DJ and PK. So, PK, is it possible for someone to gag on TV in a big moment?
This is hysterical.
All right. We're getting to it next. Stay with us.
Let's go, play! Another edition of the Holy War is in the books. And your home for all the best coverage of another chapter of BYU versus Utah was right here on the KSL Sports Zone.
Now BYU to the line. Retzloff is going to jump up top. Touchdown! Just enough to get over the first offensive touchdown of the night for BYU. Snap, hold, kick, on the way. Kick is good! The game was over, and somehow BYU, given new life, has a 1-point lead and is 3 seconds away from improving to 9-0.
Once I handed the ball off to LJ, I knew he'd secure it, get what he can, and it was time for a big game Bill to go out there and put it to the uprights. And so I handed the ball off, watched the play finish, and then turned around and found 44 and run out to the field and said, go get it, baby. You know, he did it.
As we enter the stretch run of the 24th season, the best coverage of the Utes and Cougars is on air, online, and on the KSL Sports app. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Mr. Mack, Utah County High School Player of the Week is Spanish Fork High's Brock Jacobson. 7 catches, 112 yards and a touchdown, 7 carries for 82 yards and another score. Sparked a fourth quarter comeback. He also added 7 tackles on defense. The Utah County Player of the Week award proudly presented by Mr. Mack. No one buys, no one sells, and no one cares the way they do. Absolutely no one. Comedy, PK. People, live cameras, live microphones. The TV lights go on and crazy things happen.
This may take the cake. One of the longest running game shows, seems like. I can remember waking up in my parents' home and hearing the sounds. And you walk into any casino in Vegas and you hear the same thing. Wheel of Fortune! My mother watched Price is Right and Wheel of Fortune every day.
Clockwork.
Yeah. And she would tape them if there would be something that she couldn't see.
Oh, wow.
Because you got to do something else. It was whatever. So, yeah. So I grew up with the TV on to Wheel
of Fortune.
And Price is Right. I mean, that show been on my whole life. I mean, that thing seems like it's forever. So she loved it. And then the Wheel of Fortune, you go in the casinos and you hear the sounds of the casinos and you have that. So I think this was very recent, but there was a guy and the letters don't even add up. So they've got a bunch of letters that are on the thing. You know, we've all seen the thing. They turn over there.
He froze.
Yeah.
He froze because even borderline logic, he should have known his answer does not fit. The letters have been revealed.
Right.
Just some basic borderline logic.
You got a yuck. So here he's going to solve the puzzle.
I'm actually, this thing's trending. I mean, honestly, on the front page of Google, the video's up, right? Because everyone's looking at this.
Here's what he comes up with.
Treat yourself
a round of sausage.
I'm sorry, that's not it.
So it can't be sausage because the word starts with the letter A.
And treat
is 5 letters, and there's only 4.
Treat yourself a round of sausage.
I'm sorry, that's not it.
Yourself a roundup was right.
a round of sausage.
It was 4 letters, blank, 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 and the letter E. So how can it be treat?
I know.
It's 4 letters, not 5, and it doesn't end in the letter T.
Treat yourself a round of sausage.
I'm sorry, that's not it.
Ryan Seacrest is so good. I'm sorry, that's not it.
Treat yourself, not 2, treat yourself a round of sausage.
Or the pregnant pause in the show. Treat yourself a round of sausage.
When I saw this, there's some things that just make you laugh, and that made me laugh. Now, the correct answer, do you have it? Because I've got it. It is give yourself a round of applause.
Treat yourself a round of sausage.
I'm sorry, that's not it.
Now, after the lady got give yourself a round of applause, Seacrest does go back and said, but I like your answer. Treat yourself a round of sausage. There's a lot of things I could say right now that get myself in trouble.
Yep. Fact.
I know people are waiting for it, but I'm not going to do it.
You're not going to do it. We're just going to go to break. That's what happens.
Treat yourself a round of sausage.
It's break time.
Now, is that Polish, Italian? What type of sausage are we treating ourselves
Links, patties. I mean, there's so many questions.
Right. Treat yourself a round of sausage. With the holidays coming up, I think that's appropriate. Go ahead and treat yourself.
When we come back, it's the question of the morning. The rivalry changing. How much? Flipping? Leveling? What is the right word? We'll get to that next. Stay with us.